attention.
All right, so we're here to talk about this mystery staff that is for David of the Saber Museum. This was etched and assembled by Dale at Shadowcrest. So let's hop down to the table. Let's talk about what went on with the install. We'll come back out. I'll try to show off a few more features. I'm likely going to have to just demo one because this setup means that I can't really show the full blade. But I did provide extra pommels so that you could use them dual wielded instead of a staff configuration. So let's check it out. We'll come back out and we'll talk about some other features. All right, David, your mystery staff etched and assembled by Dale at Shadowcrest Sabers. Installed, I'm showing it here in the staff setup. So these are a vestige base saber with some extra shroud work. So underneath you'll notice like the emitter, there's these slots that are very reminiscent of the vestige design. What Dale did was make a coupler. He did not provide the typical vestige pommels, but what I did was I ordered some similar looking pommels in case you wanted to use these individually. So I got these from the custom saber shop, and then I did a little bit of weathering to sort of get them close to the finish look of the unaffected parts of the saber. And then I made sure, because there's no way to carry this, that we've got these D-rings on here. So again, I know you're a museum and most of these are going to stay on display, but I built this such that you had the option, should you elect to actually take this to a con or to wear them. So we've got these extra pommels, and then you can just slip these into each saber. Each chassis just butts up against the inside of the coupler itself, and they're essentially the exact same design. So you could flip-flop them. I'm going to show you those here in a second. I did match the theme of each saber specifically. And then what I did was I put a little bit, when I was assembling these, put a little bit of tape here so that the D-ring's not flopping around. If you were to dual wield these, you won't hear a bunch of clicking, clacking. So just set these off to the side. And then how we get to everything is we just unscrew either side from the coupler. So we'll just want to be careful. And then set that down for a second. And then our chassis comes out here. When you are doing that, do be mindful that the saber itself also screws into this emitter piece. So this is all one piece here. And then I've got a button holder / emitter holder for each saber. So just when you're screwing it, you might notice if I don't have it fully tightened that it could start coming undone here. So just you want to make sure that you're doing it there. So here we have so this is I want to say, I'm just gonna say a Native American, because I don't know if this is like Mayan or Aztec themed. Here we go, I'll do it this way. So we've got this serpent lady figure on either side, and this really cool, serpent etch. This is I could tell this is one of Dale's signature triple etches, because we can have, I'm gonna see if I can show this up top. We have 3 levels of etch here. So you can see underneath that head is 1. The line around the head is another, and then the raw aluminum is the 3rd level. Dale is known for that. That's kind of his signature thing. It's very cool. And then he adhered, obviously he did that to these shroud pieces, so which he also powder coated. So he did a magnificent job with the aesthetics of this. And then of course he's also got these custom carved wood, and this isn't going to show up great on screen. You'll see it in person, but this really scaly looking, what was this? I don't know how many headed serpent, but like a serpent thing. And then it matches up here. So with that in mind on this particular chassis, by the way, this is a Shtok Rotary PCB system, so we can have a fully removable chassis. And then on each side, we've got the Shadowfoil emitter PCB, and this is sub-bladed. So there's 2 blade styles there. And then, you know, we've got our main blade. And then on this particular design, I wanted to try to do something similar. So I was teaching myself how to get like a 3-dimensional carve, but I'm not a sculptor. So this is kind of just, I don't know how to explain it, but I took the concept of a 3-dimensional serpent and applied some scale patterns. So this isn't just a typical, you know, like emboss or deboss that you could do in Fusion. I had to use 2 separate programs, but I did do some painting, and then I mimicked you can see behind the serpent-headed figure, if I can hold this still for a second, this circular design. This is on each saber. Again, I'm not sure what tribe or whatever, but I did on each of these a marble crystal, cracked marble crystal. There's just a Shtok accent ring underneath it, and then I painted the pattern. So on this particular design, it's just scales. I was hoping to try to mimic like a serpent wrap and then have some heads, but my skills are limited, so I went with this for this particular chassis. So we've got the Shtok Rotary PCB, a Proffie V3. My config is on the SD card if you need to access it. And then we've got 2 Edison filaments, and then a 25 millimeter KR bass speaker fully enclosed. Now, part of the reason I did that was because this coupler has an inner diameter that precluded me from using a 28 millimeter. I would have had to print a separate offset for a 28 millimeter, but I've been pretty satisfied with the sound quality these 25s bump out, especially when they're fully enclosed. So, and then we've got a kill switch here and our battery tray clearly identified with the positive. Initially, I had slotted for a Bluetooth module to fit underneath here, but right before I went to go print this out and get it installed, my thought was, well, it's going to be a staff, and you're going to have 2 on each side, so it'll be confusing to control each of those. So it would only really make sense if you were to wield these individually to utilize the Bluetooth to do anything. So it was kind of I made a pivot at the last second. Otherwise, I would have done a little bit more accent work here. But we've got a pretty cool design here, so I will put this off to the side for just a second, and then we'll take the coupler off. So be mindful that these wood pieces are glued, and some of the shroud work I feel like is secured with glue as well. So when you go to wield it, you know, you'll be using these KR dual tactile switches. So you'll naturally be holding this with the wood accent in your palm on either side, right? But when you go to unscrew things, make sure that you're gripping the saber itself and not the shrouds, just in case, so that you don't separate the glue or any of that. So yeah, we've got this cool coupler with these wooden offset rings. And then I made sure, you know, to design my chassis such that the amount of the pommel here is the exact same, so no modifications needed to happen. So now that's tight, right? We showed the design of this saber. Now on this saber, take the chassis out for just a second and talk about it. We've got this winged female figure, almost like a griffin. Let's see if we can, because it's got these kind of like eagle claw things on the legs here, and then winged angel. I don't know if this is a specific tribal lore like maybe Aztec or Toltec or Mayan. I'm really not 100%. But again, we've got a triple etch. And again, you can tell that if I show up in detail here, kind of in between the outline features, you've got, here I'll point with the set screw here. You've got the lowest level of the etch. The second level is this outline, and then the raw aluminum is the third. So it takes a lot of effort to align all that, I know. And then of course, when he comes back over and does this really cool blood red powder coating, which again, I mimicked on my chassis. On this chassis, I struggled with my 3-dimensional design here. So I did get some winged figures. So these feathers, are 3-dimensional. Again, this is not just an emboss pattern. So like up here, these feathers, and down here, these feathers, that's an emboss pattern. But this is a curved 3-dimensional figure. I got a source for a 2-dimensional wing, and then I duplicated it, and then I wrapped it, and I had to use a third software to do that. And then of course I still had to make sure I had clearance, because again, I was going to put a Bluetooth module underneath here, so I had a thin wall I had to accommodate for. So on this one, since I couldn't get much more in the feather aspect, I did a little bit more greebly work and paint work. So some typical emboss patterns. Sorry, I'm having trouble finding my camera here. So we've got these feather up top, some light greebly work, 2 flexible Edison filaments on either side, and then we've got those griffin claws down here, or they're just eagle talons actually, and then a row all the way around of one type of feather emboss, and then this type of feather emboss. Again, Proffie V3, 25mm KR bass speaker, Shtok Rotary PCB, and then high amp kill. So let's put a battery in all of these. So these are the exact same size marbles and cracked marbles. You gave me some items to try and use, and because I needed these to be essentially identical, I didn't use them. So I will save them for another install. But spring sides are negative, nipple to nipple.
I use dark magic to achieve power.
So I gave you Mother Talzin as the first because I feel like that most closely represents what's going on here in the etches. So you can see kind of a blinking pattern on these. And then when it lights up, kind of rotates around. And then the Edison filament goes to a more solid color that's like an audio flicker. It gets a little bit brighter with clashes. All right. So we'll set that off to the side here. We'll go ahead and put it in the Saber. Obviously it's rotary, so you can put it any which way you choose. We'll do the next one. Again, we've got positive terminal clearly identified, but flat part of your battery to the spring, nipple to nipple. And then we'll hit the kill switch.
You will know terrible pain.
Exact same setup so that when these are together, they're working in tandem. Put the coupler on one side. It doesn't matter which side you use, they're both the same. And the chassis are exactly the same. Hence, going with a little bit simpler of a setup. So this one, you just want to be a little bit more careful when you get started. And then once everything is together, you'll see the designs line up, right? So switches line up. Your blade retention is up here in between the shrouds on each of these. This is the NeoPixel holder retention, so don't mess with that. So we can see if I can get at least one of these Sabers up here. I might have to put the pommels on. Yeah, I don't have enough vertical room. Here, I'm gonna take one of these off for a second. Okay, so now we can see we got animation going there. It's gonna be different for every preset. Did a little bit something unique, right? That does something. So left side is power, right side is aux on both. Right? So I just showed you twist to activate. So that'll just get you into regular mode. This is something a little bit different, and I mentioned this in a different install video for another Saber I'm about to ship you, but it's got the exact same programming. Normally what I do is any gesture will get you into battle mode so that you don't have to push buttons, but because the buttons are very easily accessible and because you'll dual wield these, battle mode only occurs in the thrust on gesture. Otherwise, you'll use the hold buttons to actually activate. So, start it up. So a clash is just a clash, right? If you want to hold a lockup, either button and clash the Saber, right? And then, yeah, let me demonstrate this one off to the side with one of these pommels. And then that way we can sort of show you what's going on. Again, doesn't really matter. Either works for either. These are identical setups, so you don't have to worry about orientation, thankfully. And I took all that into account for you. So, exact same setup. Takes a 1-inch diameter NeoPixel blade, so I'll go ahead and throw a demo blade in here real quick. I don't have the right Allen key, but you can see here. So this is Mother Talzin. Start them up. They'll be super loud together. Be a little bit different when they're lined up in the staff. Obviously, if you're using gesture on, you'll get the exact same timing. So the hum will be starting and stopping at the same. Otherwise, if you do dual wield them, you can choose, different fonts, different, stuff like that. So the first font, Mother Talzin, is just something that kind of is, in my mind, in the same universe as what Dale did in this themed etch here. There's a couple other fonts. I did a Dark Jedi font that is a little bit unique in both sound and color. So that one kind of will go with this out of universe, but the rest of the fonts will be in universe, and they're pretty much, movie trilogy. So here we've got Vader.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan.
Master Windu.
Mace Windu for purple. Go ahead and take this out to show you the crystal. So the Edison filament is always green, but it'll do different things. So it'll blink in some regards, and then it'll be different. And then the marble crystal will do a little bit different, but the crystal will match the blade color. And then, obviously the on animation has that cool ring, rotary effect. But there will be a little bit of a different style per preset. Yeah, so if we want to change the preset again, we'll just do
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So here's Obi-Wan, got the blue going.
I'm Qui-Gon Jinn.
So we got green for Qui-Gon. Twist on, right?
Kylo Ren.
So Kylo for an unstable blade style. And again, I'll just hold this in since I don't have my correct...
I wondered when you would return.
So use the Temple Guardian for the yellow font, or yellow blade color, I should say, which is commensurate to the Rebels animated show, I believe.
Hard to get rid of.
We got Rey, and she was wielding the Graflex. You can see just a little bit of a different animation style.
Anakin.
So Anakin Skywalker from the prequel trilogy. A little bit of a light cyan blade. So here we got Ahsoka with a somewhat of a whitish silver blade from the animated series. It looks a little bluish on screen. Okay.
Savage Opress.
This is the blood red. I'm sorry, blood orange. So the last time I gave you Savage, it was dark orange, so it was closer to orange than red. This one's closer to red than orange, but it's not quite red, right?
Dark Jedi.
This is the Dark Jedi that I mentioned a second ago. So this is going to be magenta in blade color, since it's kind of out of universe. I just wanted something that would go with this theme, something else besides the canon colors. So this is more like a Darth Revan. Right, and it's also unstable.
Liquid static.
Now, liquid static is font from that's on the new default Proffie fonts. It has a pre-on. Again, to get the pre-on, you have to press the button. The blade style comes with the font, but all the extra accents are just something I picked to switch it up. Coda is another one that comes with the default Proffie fonts. Again, also has its own blade style, and I just picked different things. Just something that you can have. I put a bunch of extra fonts, but I didn't program them, I think from like Grayscale. So if you wanted to switch fonts on the fly, I've got, the printout for how to operate the Saber. You can learn how to do that. And then the last preset, I think,
Battery level.
this is battery level. And again, we're not going to see that here without our 36-inch blade. But the closer towards the tip it is, the more charged. The closer to the hilt it is, the less charged. It'll go from that green to orange to red. On the hilt, on the chassis itself, that will go from green to red on the marble. So here you can see it's kind of orangish. It probably looks a little bit more yellow on camera. If you wanted to, on the fly, figure out what it is in the off state, so without the blade off, you hold aux and tap power.
Battery level 19%.
Oh, wow, I need to charge this one. So again, that's hold aux tap power. So that will cover this. I'll show off a lot more with the blades in, but I probably won't do much wielding with it as a staff. If I do, I'll probably just use 2 demo blades so that I'm not swinging around. All right, so we're here to talk about at least one of these in this configuration. Now, this is part of the larger staff configuration, but just so I can demo some features, I'm going to be using one at a time. And for that reason, I did make the install such that they could be both dual wielded as 2 independent sabers with extra pommels, or as with this coupler, 1 saber. The electronics are identical. The chassis are aesthetically different, but essentially operate exactly the same, have the exact same configuration setup. So all of the commands and features will be the same. So this just happens to be the winged saber. This vestige does take a 1-inch diameter neopixel blade. I've programmed it for a 36-inch length because that is what David is used to. However, I'm demoing this with my KR Pixel Stick, which is a 7/8 blade at 32-inch length, just because the color shows up better, even though I've got this crazy ambient light setting. So that being said, tip effect features will still show up as I demo them. I've just got a little adapter here in the emitter so that I can use it. So it just aesthetically is going to look a little bit different, but the function is exactly the same as a 36-inch blade. So that being said, we do have a KR dual pixel switch on both. Left side is power, right side is aux. So to advance fonts in the off state, we'll do aux. If we want to go backwards, we'll hold the Saber inverted. And this is where, when you have the Saber staff configured, one side's going to be vertical and the other side's going to be different. So that'll be interesting. So likely you'll be doing what I did maybe in the demo, is switching it in horizontal so that they proceed in regular order to the next preset, so that the hums and all that stuff match. But
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
so that's forward. This is backwards. Okay.
Mother Taliesin.
And then to ignite, we have 3 different ways to do that. We have 2 gesture controls, which is twist on, twist off. We can hit the power button. You'll notice that one had a pre-on. Gesture controls bypass the pre-on. And then we have thrust on, which for this particular setup, I did include battle mode. Normally, any gesture control to turn it on, I use battle mode, but because this is a staff and I wanted to make sure it's a little bit more consistent across the feature set, I turned battle mode off on twist on, so that you could do a twist on and then get them both to work and then use buttons from there on out. So that being said, a thrust on is either a push or a pull in a horizontal direction. All right. Notice again, we bypassed the pre-on, but now all that battle mode means is that we can clash the Saber to engage a lockup, right? Without holding a button. So if we wanted to do a lockup in the regular mode, so I'm just going to turn it on, we'd need to hold either aux or power and clash the Saber. So as long as I'm holding that button down, I got my lockup. Now, got to make sure I figure out where I'm holding it. So lockups can also be melt, right? Or drag, just depending on which orientation you're in. So if you want to do a melt, you will be in the horizontal position, you'll move forward as you clash, and then that will engage your lockup. Now, if you're in regular mode, you'll be holding one of the 2 buttons. And if you're in battle mode, you could just clash it, right? So let's demonstrate that real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna hold power, clash. So now I've got a melt starting. You can see the color change. If I rotate the Saber, get a little bit different color, and then the longer I hold it, the more animated it gets. And that'll just happen until I let go of the button. Same thing goes if I'm pointing down, I'm gonna drag, right? Until I let go, right? One thing I will note is the fonts I chose at the beginning for this to start up is Mother Taliesin, because it's Force Magic, it's feminine, and the Etched has a lot of this feminine iconography, and it's kind of just otherworldly. So I chose that as the main font. I've got mostly Canon fonts after that for all the Canon colors, but then I included a couple extra fonts that are out of universe just for fun, and so that the Saber has some stuff going on. Okay, so to advance, again, we hit aux. This is Vader. So we got our red, and then I think this is DV3. One thing to note is that these shrouds, I think they're adhered down with some sort of adhesive. I don't see a mechanical connection. Same goes for the carving. So as you wield this, the best thing to do is try to keep your fingers around the actual parts of the hilt. The red is the shrouding, and so then the etched portion on the grip, so you can do like that, and then use your thumb, or depending on how long your index finger is, you can use that to wield it. And then that way you're not like holding the shrouds and twisting, because I do think that that you could damage it. It feels pretty solid. I'm just offering that as a caveat because I don't have 100% knowledge of how this was put together. And while this is probably going to be a shelf piece, I did my install such that you have the ability to take it out to cons, to Halloween's coming up, so maybe you want to wear them on the belt with the extra pommels. You can totally do that. Just be mindful of the actual construction that Dale did is, just throwing that out there.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So here we got Obi-Wan. So if we want to start a track, I think I mentioned this down below, but in the on state, you have to be vertical. And then you hold power for a second and you'll start and stop the track. It will only start and stop the designated track for this preset. So we'll figure out what that is here in a second. Star Wars theme, which is what you asked for, okay? So now I can move it around, right? But I have to be vertical to turn it on and off. If I'm any other orientation, it'll do a force effect and you'll see the blade animation. So let's do that real quick. Oh. I think I switched this to quote player mode. So to switch to quote player mode, you point the hilt down and then...
Don't worry about it. I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror.
That may have been a force effect, and now it's a quote.
Something terrible has happened.
Haven't really played around with these fonts. I buy them, but I don't use them. I just, install them for other people. So that being said, I think we switched to quote player mode. So now holding power for a second will just get quotes.
No, let's see if we can't figure out what you are.
Notice the blade's not doing anything. Okay.
Where you come.
Switch back to quote player or force player mode,
I seem to have
which for whatever reason is
What was that? That's nothing.
having some Death Star chatter.
Wash the window!
All right, we'll switch to Mace Windu. Okay, so this will be our purple blade. So again, to start the track, be vertical. Otherwise, we'll do a force effect, so let's demonstrate that real quick. So you can sort of see it goes to unstable. And it will only do that for as long as the sound effect happens. So it's not on a timer, it's gonna read the wave file, and for as long as it's playing, it'll do that animation on the blade. So let's do that again. You see, the longer the effect, the more it happens. But in quote player mode, we'll switch, point the hilt down, hold power for a second.
It is done then.
Now we're playing quotes. I do have it set to randomize quote. So while some of these fonts may have a lot of quotes that make more sense sequentially, it'll just pick a random quote. Oops. Hold it for a second and then let go.
This is the clue we need to
So notice
unravel the mystery of
it's not doing any animation.
There is much fear that clouds your judgment.
All right. So that being said, those are different functions. Now, when the blade is off, you can start the designated track again, just like with the blade on if you're upright, but you'll start track player mode if you're in horizontal or just another position. So let's demonstrate that real quick. Got that sound effect. So now it's looking at the track folder, and I think it's pretty much just gonna scroll alphabetically when we rotate to the right, reverse alphabetically if we scroll to the left, and it'll keep doing that until we press a button to tell it keep playing that track, which I want to say is power. Get that little beep. So now I can move the saber around and it won't keep changing, right? Hold again to stop. But if we point it upright, we're going to pick the designated track, which let's see what I picked. I'm not really sure what that's from. I tried to be pretty consistent with where it is. So if that's the Mace Windu font, it may be one of the Mace Windu tracks that came with that font. Otherwise, I've done, David, what you've requested: Star Wars main theme, Duel of Fates, the stuff for Rey, yada yada yada. Those are all still available through the track player mode. You just scroll two of them. So if you want to play the Star Wars theme, you could just scroll till you hear it. And obviously, if we're alphabetical, we're probably going to do it better to go reverse alphabetical. I put a lot of tracks on here. So anyway. All right.
I'm quite on tune.
So, not that you'll want it, but to change colors, you hold, with the blade on, hold aux tap power. And it's hard to do with these tiny buttons. So you get that notification. And then you'll pick through. It generally selects the specific colors, but if you want a in-between color, you have to hold the power button as you rotate, and you'll get an in-between color. And then you just press power to accept, or
Revert.
aux to revert, because I've programmed it specific for you. So I doubt you'll need it, but it's there if you want it on fonts that you don't really care about, like the ones I put at the end. So that being said, I think this track is Duel of Fates. There we go. Again, I had to be upright, and then if I do anything else, it's just a effect. Now, I don't know why for this particular font, it's a quote from Bulba. It's a Bulba, but anyway. All right.
I wondered when you were.
So here we got yellow for our Templar. So if we want to do a lightning block, it's a little difficult, but you hold power and tap aux. So the invert of the color change mode. So hold aux, tap power. I'm sorry, hold power, tap aux. And as long as I'm holding power, I'll get that lightning block.
Dark Jedi.
So this is one of the extra ones that I wanted to pick, kind of out of universe, sort of, that I thought might go well with the Etched theme. So this is Dark Jedi from Syndicate, I believe. And it's a magenta color, sort of like Resin. And then I just picked a unstable style with, you saw that glitch on, so to speak. Just something different.
Liquid static.
And so now here we've got some extra Proffie fonts that, again, I think I've provided you in the past. Should be the same blade style that you've got in the past. So if you didn't want the color, you know, you could jump in color wheel. Same thing with Coda. These have pre-ons. So again, if you do a gesture on, you're going to bypass those pre-ons.
Battery level.
And now we're at battery level. And again, if you're just on any other font and you want to know what the battery is, hold aux, tap power.
Battery level 27%.
So I'm at 27, which means I'm going to start hearing crackling as it gets lower than 20. So that's your mystery staff.
Another 1,000.
Hope you like it. It may not be as elaborate as we could have gone. The price will reflect that. But I did some challenging things to sort of make it match Dale's theme. Well, so if you have any questions, let me know. I have a printout for anything I don't cover in the video, but as always, I appreciate your patience. So yeah, thanks for checking it out.